Caleb's parents gave that house to Luna, but let's give it to Scarlett. My mother said this cheerfully, loud enough for the entire hall to hear. In that instant, the joyful atmosphere of the wedding reception froze completely. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. It all started when Caleb's father stood to give his speech. Thank you all very much for coming to celebrate the wedding of our son, Caleb and Luna, today. The room fell silent, and every gaze turned toward Caleb's father. My wife and I are truly delighted to welcome such a wonderful woman into our family. She's hardworking, sincere, and above all, she loves our son with all her heart. Caleb's mother, sitting beside him, nodded with tears in her eyes. I couldn't help but feel my eyes grow warm. And so, to celebrate the couple's new beginning, my wife and I would like to offer a small gift. Caleb's father took a small envelope from his breast pocket. These are the keys to a penthouse in the city center. Please accept it as your first home as you begin your new life together. The hall was filled with warm applause and voices of congratulations. I felt truly happy, realizing that I was loved and cherished by my husband and his family. But with my mother's next words, everything, the atmosphere, my feelings, changed completely. A grand house like that doesn't suit you. That home will be for my lovely Scarlett to live in. Caleb, sitting beside me, didn't change his expression, but I could feel his hand gripping mine tightly beneath the table. My mother continued speaking as if stating something perfectly natural. Of course, I do want to celebrate your new beginning, but you have to be realistic. Your sister needs a spacious house. You and Caleb will be fine living in his company apartment, won't you? As if to echo her, Scarlett, who suddenly became the star of the day, smiled theatrically in her sparkling dress. That's right, Luna. Don't look so scary. It's just a house. Just a house. Those words echoed in my mind again and again. The penthouse Caleb's parents had bought with their hard-earned savings as a gift for our new life together. It was supposed to be a precious place where the two of us could talk about our future while gazing at the city lights. The guests around us looked puzzled, unsure what was happening. Most of them probably thought it was just an odd family joke, but I knew better. This was no joke. It was a public ritual, repeated time and again, meant to take something away from me. And neither my mother nor Scarlett noticed Caleb's quiet anger burning beside me. They say that a wedding reveals a person's true nature. And that is absolutely right. My wedding made it clear who truly loved me and who only wanted to use me. And they still haven't realized it yet. They had no idea that I had carefully prepared a counterattack for this very day. That counterattack was something Caleb and I built together, side by side. After becoming a working adult and going independent as an interior designer, I was finally able to focus on my work without interference. Peaceful, and above all, free. It was during that time that I met my husband, Caleb. His family, too, are warm and kind people. Our relationship went smoothly, and we naturally began to think about marriage. The night I accepted his proposal, I told Caleb everything about my family, the study abroad story, the savings that were used without my permission, and how my mother and Isla believed that everything I owned was a family possession. After listening silently, Caleb held my hand tightly and said, "Luna, you're not alone anymore. From now on, I'll be your boundary. I'll never let anyone hurt you again." I can't even put into words how much those words supported me. While preparing for the wedding, Caleb's parents told us in advance that they wanted to give us a penthouse as our new home. It was such a touching gesture that it brought tears to my eyes. Yet at the same time, a dark shadow crossed my mind. I'm sure my mother and Scarlett will want that house again. When I told Caleb about that uneasy feeling, he nodded quietly but firmly. Because in the home I grew up in, the word fairness was nothing more than a decorative phrase used only on special occasions. In everyday life, such a concept simply didn't exist. What my mother, Violet, valued above all was keeping things smooth, maintaining order. And to preserve that order, I, as the eldest daughter, always had to be the obedient one. Meanwhile, my sister Scarlett was always treated as the fragile and delicate child. During my college years, when I had worked desperately part-time to save money for my certification, I discovered that the money I had set aside was completely gone. When I asked my mother, she replied without the slightest hint of guilt. "Ah, Scarlett said she didn't have enough money for a trip, so I used it. We're family after all, isn't that obvious?" At that moment, I understood clearly. In this house, no matter how hard I worked for something, It would all be considered family property and would ultimately become Scarlett's. So I made a decision. For the family who might say anything, this time I would prepare thoroughly. Caleb replied, "Yeah, I think you're right. That's precisely why this time we will make sure it doesn't happen. Let's prepare for it." Our preparations for the counterattack began quietly with that single sentence. Our plan rested on two pillars. The first was a legal wall of defense, and the other was a trap using cutting edge technology to make them prove their own wrongdoing. First, 2 weeks before the wedding, we went to the notary office. This was to formalize a legal declaration that Caleb had a lawyer acquaintance draft for us. The declaration stated the following: any gift received in the name of Luna shall not be transferred or sold to others for any reason without the holder's written consent. When the notary stamped the document with a solemn expression, I felt as if I were donning a sturdy suit of armor in my heart. Next, we arranged the security system to be installed in the penthouse. This was not an ordinary security camera. It was a special system created by combining the top technologies from the IT security company Caleb runs. It is called the Silent Guardian. This system had specific people registered, their faces and voice prints of my mother, Scarlett, and my father. If any registered person entered the penthouse without our permission, the system would not sound an alarm. Instead, it would continuously record the entire incident, from entry to exit in high quality, with multiple hidden cameras and microphones. That recorded footage would be uploaded immediately to a cloud server and stored with a timestamp as tamper-proof evidence of trespass. Moreover, the moment an intrusion was detected, only our smartphones would receive a quiet notification reading, "The target has triggered the trap." As Caleb ran the final check on the system, he looked at me seriously. "This isn't just revenge. It's self-defense. To take back everything that was stolen from you and to secure a future no one can ever violate again." On the morning of the wedding, as I stood before the mirror in my wedding dress, I quietly made up my mind. If my mother and Scarlett revealed their greed in front of everyone at the reception, I would first defend myself with our legal declaration. And if they still refused to give up and tried to steal the penthouse through unlawful means, then the trap, Silent Guardian, would quietly drag them into the courtroom of their own making. "It's not just a house. You can't just take my home without permission. I'll call the police." My voice rang out clearly through the now silent reception hall. The chatter that had filled the room moments before vanished as every eye turned toward me. My mother looked momentarily shocked, but quickly put her gentle, charitable mask back on. "Luna, why are you so angry? Everyone's watching. You're making a scene." Those words lit the final fuse in my heart. Making a scene? They were the ones trampling my efforts and trying to steal my happiness? There's nothing more disgraceful than that. With trembling hands, I opened my small clutch bag on the table. Inside was the declaration stamped by the notary 2 weeks earlier. I slowly stood up and walked toward my mother and Scarlett. Beside me, Caleb also rose quietly, standing close to my back as if to shield me. "The just a house you're talking about is a precious gift from Caleb's parents, given to us out of love for our future. And it is legally my property." I unfolded the document and held it open before their eyes. This is a legally certified declaration from the notary office. It states, "Any gift received in the name of Luna may not be transferred or sold without her written consent." I could see the color drain from my mother's face. Scarlett looked between me and the document in disbelief. "You, when did you make something like this?" In as calm but firm a tone as I could manage, I answered, "I anticipated that you would come here to take what's mine." A wave of murmurs swept through the hall. The guests finally began to understand that this was not a family joke. It was a serious confrontation. Then, my father, who had been silently watching everything unfold, finally rose from his seat and spoke in a heavy tone. "Luna, that's enough. Your mother and Scarlett didn't mean any harm. We're family after all." At that moment, something inside me snapped. "Does being family mean you can do whatever you want?" I asked him the question calmly. My voice did not tremble. The heavy resentment I had carried deep inside for years finally overflowed in the form of words. "Just because we're family, is it okay for you to crush my dream of studying abroad? Just because we're family, is it fine to spend the money I worked so hard to save without asking me? And because we're family, do you think it's natural to claim the home meant for my future and Caleb's as your own?" I took a step forward and looked straight into Scarlett's eyes. Do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed for you? It's over now. I'm done being the convenient older sister who lives for you. Overwhelmed by my determination, Scarlett shrank back and hid behind our mother. Seeing her, my mother suddenly snapped out of it and exploded in anger. What an ungrateful child you are. Do you have any idea how hard I worked to raise you? Worked hard? A dry laugh escaped my lips. Was it really that hard to raise me as a tool to obey Scarlett's every whim? Caleb must have poisoned your mind. Ever since you met that man, you've completely changed. He didn't poison me. He opened my eyes. The moment her accusations turned toward Caleb, he quietly stepped in front of me. His body seemed to tremble with anger, but his voice was calm as ice. Mrs. Violet, Luna hasn't changed. She's simply taken back who she truly is. She isn't a tool, she's a person. And she's my wife, whom I love deeply. My mother was struck speechless by Caleb's resolute tone. I looked at my mother, father, and Scarlett one last time and gave my final words. This penthouse belongs to us. I won't hand over even a single key. If you have anything more to say, please speak to my lawyer from now on. It was, in effect, a declaration of severance. Let me make one thing clear, Caleb added firmly. I will never forgive anyone who ever dares to hurt or use Luna again. His words filled me with strength and a profound sense of peace. I nodded to him, letting him take my arm as we turned our backs. Behind us, my mother shouted something. I could hear Scarlett crying, but none of it reached my heart anymore. As we opened the heavy doors of the reception hall and stepped into the corridor outside, I exhaled deeply. It felt as if I had finally surfaced after being trapped deep underwater for decades. We slipped out of the hall for a change of clothes and leaned quietly against the wall of the hotel's empty corridor. Caleb looked into my face and asked, "Are you okay?" I nodded, unable to suppress the joy welling up from deep within me. I'm fine. Actually, I think this might be the first time in my life I've ever felt this free. I see. I'm glad. Caleb smiled gently, as if my relief had finally reached him too. Both of our smartphones were set to silent mode and tucked away in our pockets. The notification from the silent guardian had not yet arrived. Do you really think they'll do it? I asked quietly. Caleb answered with absolute certainty in his voice. Oh, they will. Your mother and the others may understand what a notarized document means, but they'll never accept the reality that they can't steal from you anymore. They'll try to get it another way. Just as he predicted, a new plan was already in motion back inside the reception hall. After we left, the room had fallen into brief chaos, but my mother quickly regained her composure and began acting as though nothing had happened. She's just a little tired, that's all. Everyone, please continue to enjoy yourselves. Then, taking my father by the arm, she approached Caleb's parents' table and spoke in a humble tone. We are truly sorry for our daughter's behavior today. It seems she's become a little emotional from the stress of the wedding. We're thinking of helping her manage the penthouse for a while until she calms down. If you don't mind, could we perhaps hold on to a spare key? Of course, Caleb's parents would never agree to such a request, but my mother's true aim lay elsewhere. She already knew that once the reception was over, a shipment was scheduled to arrive at the penthouse, and that Caleb's parents had agreed to receive it on our behalf since we would be busy. Caleb's father reached into his jacket pocket in reflex and politely declined. I'm afraid that won't be possible. Scarlett didn't miss his movement. She had been watching carefully from behind the table. As the guests began to leave and the crowd filled the exit area, Scarlett waited for her moment. Her heart pounded wildly, but her mother's silent pressure pushed her forward. Holding a champagne bottle, she approached Caleb's father, thanked him politely, and pretended to stumble. While helping him regain his balance, her fingers slipped deftly into the inside pocket of his jacket. And in an instant, she felt the cold touch of metal between her fingertips. Without drawing any attention, the three of them, my mother, father, and Scarlett, headed toward the hotel exit, certain they had just secured their victory. Honestly, Luna can be so stubborn, my mother muttered smugly. Once we talk to her later, she'll understand. That's right, Mom. That document was just meant to scare us. Once we get inside, it's ours. They still didn't know. The key in their hands wasn't for opening a door to a happy future. It was a key to the very trap they had set for themselves. After changing outfits, the reception ended smoothly, and the cleanup began. Meanwhile, we waited quietly in the hotel suite. Once I had slipped out of the elegant wedding dress and changed into something comfortable, reality slowly began to settle back in. Caleb stood by the window, gazing out at the glittering night skyline. When I handed him a cup of coffee and stood beside him, he said softly, "Thanks," and wrapped his arm gently around my shoulder. "It's here." At that same moment, his smartphone, resting on the table, vibrated briefly. Just once. On the screen, next to a small owl icon, appeared a single line of text. "Silent Guardian, the target has triggered the trap. Recording initiated." The moment had finally come. Caleb opened his laptop and logged into the security system's control panel. Almost immediately, a live feed from the hidden cameras in the penthouse living room appeared on the screen. There they were, my mother, father, and Scarlett, walking boldly into the living room. "Wow, amazing! So this is going to be our house!" Scarlett shouted, running toward the large window in excitement. My mother folded her arms and surveyed the space with satisfaction. This is too good for Luna. This room will make a fine study for me. That one over there will be perfect for your yoga studio, Scarlett." "Keep your voices down," my father warned half-heartedly. "We'll leave for now and bring in our things another day." Even so, a faint smirk lingered on his face. As I listened to their conversation, I realized something strange. I no longer felt angry. Instead, an icy calm washed over me. Caleb noticed and asked gently, concern in his eyes, "Luna, if it's too hard for you, you don't have to watch this." I shook my head. "No, I'm fine. I need to see it through to the end." On the screen, the three of them continued to wander through the apartment, examining every corner as though it were already theirs. We simply sat there, watching everything unfold in silence. On screen, they looked absurdly carefree and frighteningly foolish. Caleb took my hand and said firmly, "We've got more than enough evidence." "What now, Luna?" Staring at my mother's triumphant face on the monitor, I answered quietly but clearly, "Call the police." The report was made through Caleb's company's legal department, which directly contacted a senior officer he knew at the local precinct. From our suite, we transferred the video data recorded by the Silent Guardian straight to the police server. It was perfect evidence, time-stamped and impossible to tamper with. Caleb spoke calmly on the phone, explaining the situation in precise detail. 15 minutes later, the front door of the penthouse on the laptop screen shook with a violent knock. Inside the footage, my mother and Scarlett looked around, bewildered. Then a deep, commanding voice rang from outside. "This is the police. Open the door." What happened next looked like a scene from a drama. My father, who opened the door, stood frozen as several officers entered. My mother screamed, "This is a mistake," while Scarlett collapsed onto the floor. One of the officers addressed them coolly, "You are under arrest for trespassing." My mother shouted until the very end, "What's wrong with entering my own daughter's house?" But when the officer showed the warrant, along with the certified notice from our lawyer stating that no entry whatsoever is permitted, she finally fell silent. We watched in silence as the three of them were handcuffed and escorted out. Before leaving, Scarlett muttered something under her breath, unaware that the hidden microphones had caught every word. "I'm sorry, Luna. I'd be lying if I said my heart didn't waver at that. But I had already made my decision, never to look back. This wasn't revenge. It was a necessary act of reclaiming my life and of protecting the future I would walk together with the man I love." Caleb gently closed the laptop. "It's over." "Yes," I replied softly. "It's over." Without a word more, we fell into each other's arms, holding tightly in the quiet of the night. Outside the window, the city lights shimmered endlessly, as if celebrating our new beginning. It was the start of a future that finally belonged to us, untouched by anyone else. That night, my parents and Scarlett were taken into police custody. The next day, our attorney stepped in to begin the formal process of prosecution. The footage recorded by Silent Guardian became undeniable evidence, leaving them no room for excuses. Caleb's parents, though shaken by what had happened, told us firmly, "We completely support your decision," and stood by our side with strength and compassion. In the end, my father, mother, and Scarlett were found guilty of trespassing, receiving suspended sentences. They avoided prison, but the fact that they had become criminals shattered their pride completely. On the day of the verdict, we left for our long-delayed honeymoon. We needed both physical and emotional distance from the past to finally let go. At the seaside resort, I laughed from the depths of my heart for the first time in years. For my mother, who cared more about appearances than anything else, it was surely the harshest punishment of all. Through our lawyer, we had them sign an agreement banning any future contact with us. If they broke it, they would face new charges under the anti-stalking law. Later, I heard through acquaintances that they sold their house and moved to a distant city where no one knew them. Once, a single letter arrived from Scarlett through our lawyer, written in trembling handwriting. It was filled with regret, saying, "I just wish I could have been honest and talked with you earlier." But I never wrote back. Even if she had truly realized her mistakes, it was too late. The time we lost was far too great. Just like a shattered plate can never be made whole again, trust once broken can never truly be restored. I stopped looking back. My future no longer shared a path with theirs. A year has passed since then. Caleb and I were sitting together in the living room of the same penthouse. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the night skyline stretched infinitely, a sea of lights sparkling like scattered jewels. "It's so beautiful," I whispered dreamily, resting my head on Caleb's shoulder as we sat together on the sofa. He gently stroked my hair and replied softly, "Yeah, being able to see this view with you every day is the greatest happiness I could ever have." No phone calls that would shatter this peace. No unexpected, unwelcome visitors. No fear of someone taking something away from us. Just quiet days of sharing the happiness right in front of us. That was what I had longed for more than anything. Caleb took my hand and pressed a tender kiss on the back of it. "Luna, I promise I'll make you the happiest woman in the world." I looked into his eyes and smiled from the depths of my heart. "I already am." Our new life had only just begun. Under this vast sky, the two of us would quietly and surely build our future together.